So today, we're going to dive into a really powerful framework for personal freedom. It's drawn from this incredible ancient Toltec wisdom, shared by Don Miguel Ruiz in his book. And really, it's a guide to breaking all those self-limiting beliefs that, let's be honest, hold us all back sometimes.
But before we get into it, let me ask you a question. Think for a second about the harshest, most relentless critic you've ever had. You know, the one who knows all your deepest insecurities and never ever lets you forget a mistake. Now, what if that person is actually living inside your own mind?
Well, according to Toltec wisdom, that's not just a metaphor. There is literally a war happening inside of us all the time. It's this constant conflict between two very real parts of our mind, the judge and the victim.
Okay, so let's break this down. The judge, that's the voice in your head that's always condemning you, right? It's pointing out every single time you don't measure up to this invisible rule book. And then there's the victim. That's the part of us that just takes it. It hears the judgment and says, yep, you're right, I'm not good enough. It's this really vicious cycle of self-abuse.
And this all leads to a really, really powerful quote from the book. Just let this one sink in for a moment. The deepest source of our suffering, it's usually not what other people do to us. It's what we do to ourselves with this constant internal war and self-rejection.
So you might be wondering, where in the world did this inner critic even come from? Well, here's the good news. It's not your fault. It's not some personal failing. It's a system we were all taught, a process that Ruiz calls domestication.
The Toltecs believe that all of us are living in a dream, and we're not talking about the kind you have at night. This is the collective dream of our planet, of our society. It's this whole web of rules, beliefs, and laws that basically shapes our entire perception of reality. The only problem is, a lot of the time, this dream feels more like a nightmare.
So how exactly do we get trapped inside this dream? Well, it starts when we're just kids. We're taught the rules of our family, our society. We get rewarded, praise, attention, for following them, and we get punished when we don't. And over time, that whole external system of reward and punishment, it becomes internal. We become our own tamer, enforcing rules we never even consciously agreed to.
This whole process creates what Ruiz calls your personal book of law. It's your internal rule book, and it is jam-packed with all the shoulds and shouldn'ts you've picked up over your life. And every single time you even think about breaking one of these internal laws, what do you feel? Fear, guilt, shame.
But here's the turning point. This is where it all changes. We actually have a choice. We can keep living by these old fear-based agreements that just drain our personal energy, or we can choose to adopt new agreements based on love that actually replenish and increase our energy. So the big question is, what are these new agreements?
And that brings us to the very first and maybe the most important of the 4 agreements. This one is the foundation for everything else. It's be impeccable with your word. Now, impeccable is such a fascinating word here. It literally means without sin. But a sin, in this context, isn't about breaking some external moral rule. A sin is anything you do against yourself. So to be impeccable with your word means to stop using your own words as a weapon against yourself. Think about your mind like it's a fertile garden. Your words are the seeds you're constantly planting in it. Every time you tell yourself, I'm not smart enough, you're planting a seed of fear. But when you tell yourself, I can figure this out, you're planting a seed of love. And this applies to other people too. Spreading gossip, for example, is like throwing poison all over their garden. Being impeccable means using your words for truth and for love, starting with the way you talk to yourself. Building right on top of that, the second agreement acts like a powerful shield against all the words and actions coming from other people. And it is, don't take anything personally. This is a total game changer. When someone insults you, or even when they praise you, it's not actually about you. It's about them. It's a projection of their own reality, their own dream, their own personal movie. We're all living in our own movies, and in theirs, you're just a supporting character. What they do and say is a reflection of their own story.
You see, taking things personally is like someone trying to hand you their emotional poison, and you willingly drink it down. But the moment you truly understand it's not about you, you become immune. You can just let their poison pass right by without it ever touching you.
So the first 2 agreements are all about managing our own words and our reactions. The next 2, well, they take that same consciousness and apply it to our actions and our relationships with everyone else.
The third agreement sounds so simple, but wow, it is incredibly hard to practice. Don't make assumptions. Just think for a second about how much suffering in our lives is caused because we assume we know what someone else is thinking or feeling. We literally invent whole stories in our heads. We get mad. We create all this drama. And it's all based on something we just made up. The antidote is so simple. Clear communication. Have the courage to just ask questions and to say what you really want.
And finally, we have the fourth agreement, which really ties them all together: always do your best. But, and this is a really big but, your best does not mean perfection. Your best when you're healthy and full of energy is going to be very different from your best when you're sick or tired. The key is to take action for the pure joy of it, not for some reward. Because when you know you've done your best, whatever the outcome, there's just no room for that inner judge to come in and attack you with regret or criticism.
Now, putting these 4 agreements into practice, it's not some passive thing you do on a Sunday. It's an active daily transformation. It's about consciously deciding to create a brand new dream for your life. It's about becoming what Ruiz calls a spiritual warrior.
And what is this war against? It's against the parasites that have been feeding on your joy and your energy for years. That nagging inner judge, that self-pitying victim, and that entire book of law filled with beliefs that keep you small. These 4 agreements, these are your weapons in that war for your own freedom.
This whole journey really follows a clear path. First comes the mastery of awareness. Just waking up and realizing you've been living in a dream that isn't really serving you. Next is the mastery of transformation, where you use the 4 agreements to actively rewrite that dream. And finally, you get to the mastery of intent, where you start to live your whole life from a place of pure, unconditional love.
At the end of the day, your mind is an incredibly powerful tool. It can create a personal hell, or it can create your own personal heaven. The agreements you choose to live by are the paintbrushes you use to create your reality. By choosing new agreements based on love instead of fear, you take back the power. The only question left is, what will you choose to create?